In this video, we are starting to look at probability tree diagrams. In front of us, we have a completed probability tree diagram, and it represents the information of the semi-finals of the 2050 World Cup, where we have England versus Brazil in one semi-final, which can be seen here, and Germany versus Argentina in the other semi-final. The probability that England reach the final is 0.5. Now this branch and that branch must add up to 1, which means if the probability is 0.5 for England winning, that means the probability for Brazil winning is also 0.5, as 0.5 add 0.5 equals 1. The probability that Germany reach the final is 0.6, which we can see here. This set of branches must also add up to 1, which means if Germany winning is 0.6, Argentina winning must be 0.4, as 0.6 add 0.4 equals 1. This set of branches is a duplication of the information above, therefore 0.4 and 0.6 of the probabilities are repeated. The question goes on to ask us, what is the probability that the final is between a European and a South American team? So we'll have a look at these options. For there to be a European and South American team, we could have England and Argentina winning. We could not have England then Germany, as that would be two European teams. We could not have Brazil and Argentina winning, as that would be two South American teams. So our other option is to have Brazil winning, then Germany winning. These would give our two options of England versus Argentina or Brazil versus Germany. We now need to work out the probabilities of this happening. Now when you go across the branches, you multiply the probabilities together, as we have the probability of England winning and Argentina winning. And the word "and" in probability, we should remember, means you multiply the values. So that means our first step, if we look at our blue branches, we would be looking for the probability of it being England and Argentina, where we have 0.5 for England and 0.4 for Argentina. We would multiply these two values together. Because we have two decimal places in our question, 1, 2, we would want two decimal places in our answer, 1, 2. 5 times 4 is 20. So 20 would go there with a 0 point before it. We will now look at Brazil and Germany, where we'd have the probability of Brazil and Germany, which is 0.5 for Brazil multiplied by the 0.6 for Germany. We have 2 decimal places in our question, which means we have 2 decimal places in our answer. 5 times 6 is 30, with a 0 before it. Now the probability of having a South American versus a European side in the final is a mixture of this probability or that probability. This word "or" should make you think of "add." So the total probability of there being a European and South American team in the final would be to add those probabilities together to give us 0.5. So our first step, if we're going across branches, we multiply the probabilities together. If we are looking for a combination of the different outcomes, we would be looking to add the probabilities that we have gained from multiplying. Press pause and try the example on the next page. In this tree diagram, we have the semi-finals of the 2050 World Cup. We have England versus Brazil and Argentina versus Germany. The probability that England reach the final is 0.3. That means the probability of Brazil reaching the final must be 0.7, as 0.3 and 0.7 is equal to 1. The probability that Germany reach the final is 0.6. That means the probability of Argentina reaching the final must be 0.4, as 0.4 and 0.6 add up to 1, with these branches being duplicated. We are asked to work out the probability that the final is between England and Germany. That means we are looking for England to win the first semi-final and Germany to win the second semi-final. There are no other options where England are playing Germany. So that means we have just one calculation to do, where we have the probability of England and Germany, which would give us 0.3 and 0.6. We're going across the branches where we have England and Germany, therefore we multiply those values together. We have one decimal place in each of our decimals, which means there are 2 decimal places altogether. That means there must be 2 decimal places in our answer. 3 times 6 is 18, which means the probability of England playing Germany in the final is 0.18. Remember, if you were asked to find any other combinations, you would add those combinations at the end.